Hey, Marshall, are you in there? Oh, there you are. Hey, when you come in from outside after playing in the snow and your gloves and your shoes are all wet, what do you do with them?
Put them on the floor.
Yeah, it puts them all over the floor and they drip and they get the wood floor all wet or the rugs all wet. But now we've got a cool solution, right?
Yeah.
I'm a visual learner. Many of my project ideas come when I see something. I'll see a product in a store or a picture online or in a magazine. Like this. This is an ad for a shoe and boot dryer. Now I thought this was a really good idea, only I would make a couple of changes. Number one, I'd want to be able to dry shoes and gloves at the same time. And number two, why use electricity when I could use the forced air from the heat vents in my house? So, I built this fancy prototype. Pretty cool, huh? Actually, it is crude, but it was enough to test out my idea. I put this over my heat vent and it actually worked. Plenty of heat came out here. So now it was time to design my own. Now, I don't have a computer CAD system, but what I do have is a paper pad system. Let me show you what I came up with. When designing a product, it needs to fit in the space you have in mind. In my case, it's going to need to fit around this heat vent. My vent size is 13.5 by 5.5 inches. The wooden box I want to build around it should be slightly larger. My box inside dimensions are going to be 1/8 of an inch larger than the length and width of the heat vent. Here I jot down the final dimensions of all 5 pieces for the box. I cut these from scrap wood I've got in the garage. The holes I cut with a jigsaw. Adjust them so that the PVC adapters fit snugly. Now there's a lot of different ways to assemble the box. I decided to first clamp the pieces together, then pre-drill all the holes using a small drill bit. Before gluing it together, I'm going to install the screws. I'm going to use these trim screws because they've got a small head and I want to drive them below the surface of the wood so I can fill the gap with wood filler. After installing all the screws, I take it apart and glue it before reassembly. Now all the screw holes are perfectly lined up. To make sure all the screws line up, I like to insert them about halfway and then, once they're all in, crank them all down. In order to make the box look better, I'm going to sand smooth all the surfaces. Then I'll use a router to round off all the top edges. While the wood filler's drying, I'm going to go ahead and try to mount my PVC adapters. Now mine came with this bump on the outside and I had to grind that off. So now that it's perfectly smooth, we're going to go ahead and mount these. Now when you cut your holes, you don't want them so tight that you have to pound these in with a sledgehammer. They should come out fairly easily. In order to mount them, I'm going to try using the PVC primer and the PVC cement. Now, it's normally made for 2 pieces of PVC being bonded together, but I'm going to try PVC and wood and see how it works. Be sure to lay down newspaper because if you get this stuff on anything, it's going to be pretty difficult to remove. The primer dries very quickly, so you can apply the clear cement almost immediately after the primer. I'm not just going to rely on the PVC cement to hold these pieces in place. I'm also going to use this right angled bit to drill holes and put a couple screws into each piece. And now it's time to paint. I'm going to use this black spray paint that's made for both wood and plastic. But first, I'm going to prime the wood using this primer. And on the PVC, I wasn't sure how well this was going to bond to it, so I did a little test. I took some 220 grit sandpaper and sanded one end and left the other one alone. Now, I found that the one that was sanded with 220 was much more scratch resistant. So, I would highly advise you before you paint, if you paint, use 220 sandpaper and sand the surface of all your PVC pieces. Then, take a clean rag with some paint thinner and wipe it all down. I already did that, so let's get to painting. Now it's entirely up to you if you want to cement all the joints together. I just figured when the warmer weather comes, I'm going to want to disassemble this to be able to store it. All the paint is dry. Now it's just time to go test it out. So there it is. You can dry a pair of shoes and gloves at the same time. Now some people might say, hey, you're covering up your heat. You're not going to get any heat in the house. Well, you do get some that still comes off of these items. However, if you're really concerned about that or the room gets cold, you can simply take off the gloves and dry the shoes and the gloves separately. Well, thanks for watching Alley Picked. I hope you stay nice and dry.
Give a big thumbs up and subscribe. See you in the alley.